Actually, no, I have a question for you.
No! Bastard! You're taking over this podcast and I don't appreciate it. Go ahead, what's your question?
Well, this one's kind of more on a hardware bent because I know the last couple questions have been more on the software side. So, for context, I ended up picking up a new mechanical keyboard for my work office area because I didn't quite like the keyboard that they sent me and everything. And it's a nicer keyboard, mostly because of just my preference in typing and everything. But the keyboard is a Keychron K10 with Gatron blue switches, which are knockoffs of Cherry MX switches. So, for anyone who needs a reference of what that sort of feels like, if you're not familiar with mechanical keyboards, um, this one has sort of a old school clicky feel, kind of like an old typewriter, but more similar to the original IBM Model M keyboards from like the early to mid '90s, back when computers were slowly starting to come into classrooms all around the world and everything. So just very, very chunky clicks when you hit on these buttons and everything. And it just kind of sort of inspired this question that I wanted to ask Wiz. So, for keyboards, what is your preference, membrane or mechanical keyboards?
Mechanical. I dealt with membrane all my life, and I was always comfortable with that, whether I went to work or when I had one of my family had computers, when I had started having computers of my own, I always had membrane, and they were fine. But when I got this new computer that I bought like I would say 4 or 5 years ago, I made sure I got a mechanical keyboard, and I love this thing, dude. Like, it feels so good, like typing on this, and hearing the clacks and stuff when I'm using it. Like, it's so satisfying. And I got the Corsair K95 RGB Platinum, and that's an expensive keyboard, so it better be good, and it was. So yeah, with this is my favorite keyboard by far. Like, I love this thing. I do have to clean it though; it looks pretty disgusting. But yeah,
Yeah, and I assume it's probably got something like Cherry MX Blues or something in it.
Cherry MX Speeds.
Okay.
Yeah. The only issue I have with it is that sometimes the keys just pop out, but that's also because I'm a hard typer. So sometimes I'm like if I'm writing, when I used to write articles, way back when, I would like get really in the zone and start writing, and then boop, there goes the L key. I'm like, what the hell?
Oh God.
So that kind of happened because there's a lot of space between the switch and the keystroke. The key itself is kind of small, so when there's that much air, I guess, when you press it and you press hard enough, it kind of just pops out on its own. So
Jeez.
I have to really type really hard to do that. That's more of a me thing than I think a problem with the keyboard. But I definitely like the keyboard that I have. Like, I'm so satisfied with it. I probably would go 10 keyless next time though. But I definitely I love the fact that I have this keyboard. It's awesome. What about you?
Me, just, I'm definitely more of a mechanical person. I've definitely been more on sort of the clicky switch side of things. My gaming laptop, I have a Logitech 910 Orion plugged up to it, which that uses Logitech's proprietary Romer G switches, which they're nice and clicky. They're okay, but they're a little mushy and sloppy. So, I mean, it's plenty serviceable for games and stuff like that, but for the long while that I've had that, it's always sort of had me sort of desiring more, just especially with everyone sort of holding the Cherry MX switches as like the gold standard, the one switch to beat. And then, of course, you've got all these Switch manufacturers that are just sort of coming out from China to sort of compete in the market. Like, you've got Kale, who I believe they're the exclusive manufacturer for the Razer switches.
Hmm.
So, so Kale makes their own in-house switches, and they also help Razer manufacture their switches. And then uh, Gatron, they are another Cherry MX style competitor. So there's just like this giant world of just all sorts of mechanical switches that you can buy and everything. And I think even um, the social shopping company Drop has their own set of mechanical switches that they're partnered with a manufacturer to make as well too.
Yeah.
So for me, I've always had a preference towards a very clicky switch, kind of like a Cherry MX Blue, and the work keyboard, or rather the office keyboard that I got, the Keychron K10. It has the Gatron G Pro Blues, which are very similar to the Cherry MX Blues, and it's just an absolute pleasure to type on.
Hmm.
And um, and it's kind of funny too because I love the keyboard so much. I ended up just deciding to get a second one, but instead, the second one has Gatron G Pro Reds in it, which are the equivalent of the Cherry MX Reds. So, a much more smoother linear action. There's no hard tactile click, and they're very smooth. And for me, I would compare those, at least for any arcade stick jockeys out there, they would be kind of like the Sanwa buttons, just very smooth actuation, very quick actuation. So excellent for gaming, but they are not ideal for typing because when I'm on that keyboard to do gaming stuff like on my TV and in my media room and everything, I make so many typos on that keyboard.
Yeah. I mean, I gotta be honest. When I game on a PC, I don't use the keyboard. I always use a gamepad. I know people are gonna think that's crazy, but I I've tried since I've gotten this keyboard to do gaming on it, and when I play first-person shooters, I have a horrible time. Like it just is not comfortable with me whatsoever. So I use a gamepad. The only time I use the keyboard on gaming is things like Diablo or like stuff like that. Like action RPGs, I can do that just fine. But yeah, when it comes to typing, like I prefer the mechanical, and I prefer like just the way that this keyboard is so smooth when I type. Because I remember when I used the membrane ones, especially like in a cheap $10 or $20 keyboard. Either like the keys are too chunky, so then I would press a key, and then maybe the other key also gets pressed. Maybe because I have big fingers, I don't know. Or I'm going too fast and I'm not as accurate as I used to be. That's a possibility. But I don't have that issue with my keyboard. So, yeah, like, I definitely prefer this mechanical keyboard now. Like, I love it. I absolutely love it. And the only thing I think I regret, because this is an expensive keyboard. I probably wouldn't get one with macros or RGB, or maybe I would not get a 10 keyless. I would still get a mechanical keyboard, but I would probably get a smaller keyboard late next time, because this thing is honking huge, dude. Like, it is like massive, and I
Yeah,
still
I've
like it.
seen pictures of it online, and yeah, I definitely know how massive it is because I know my Logitech 910 Orion. That thing is a chonk.
Yeah, oh yeah, but I gotta say, even though it's expensive, I think the price was well worth it for me. Like I look back, I look at it now at the price. It's $200 to purchase it, and I'm still completely satisfied with it. Like I love it. So I know
Yeah.
I know some people. I know some people like to build their own keyboards.
Oh yeah, especially with being able to buy your own chassis and stuff like that. Because like my work keyboard and the keyboard that I use to game on my media room and everything, They're made by Keychron, and Keychron, they actually do offer bare bones chassis kits. So if you want to use your own keycaps, you want to use your own choice of keyboard switches, you can totally, absolutely go nuts with it. And it's kind of cool for people who want to do that. But yeah, that's real intense stuff, and that kind of gets into its own sort of uniqueness and everything. Which kind of leads into sort of my final question is,
Okay.
are there any particular keyboards you aspire to, or is there like a dream keyboard out there that you're just like, yeah, I want to get one of those later down the line or something?
I gotta tell you, dude, this keyboard was it. Like this keyboard was the one where I looked at it and go, I want this. Like, and I had a good amount of money when I was making my PC, and I was like, you know what? If I'm gonna bling out, like I'm gonna bling out. So I got this keyboard. This was the dream keyboard. I wanted it. I bought it. I loved it, and I'm so glad I did. I think what may surprise some people, excuse me, is that I kind of cheaped out on the mouse. I had a Razer Blackadder, but it was a wired mouse, and I liked it. But I just preferred having a mouse that was not wired. So, because I kept getting stuck, and that became kind of an issue when playing certain games. So I prefer to have the mouse that maybe isn't as feature rich as the Blackadder, but is just functional enough. So I got like a cheap $20 like mouse that is what are they called, cordless. So
Yeah.
I was fine with that like, the mouse. If you would look at my desk, the mouse is a cheap mouse, and I'm fine with it. But the keyboard is super expensive, and I'm thoroughly satisfied. So, I honestly haven't looked at other keyboards since, to be completely honest. So, excuse me. Could there be better ones? Sure. But if I have to replace my keyboard next time, I would get a less expensive keyboard, a smaller keyboard with less macros. Maybe I'd go 10 keyless and go that route and just make it more compact and be fine with that. So, yeah. You?
For me, I'm kind of torn because for my office area, I would love to at some point maybe get something nice and something nice and colorful for my office area. So the Keychron Q6 is sort of something I've got my eye on, and mostly in the blue configuration because it's just so blue, but it's also got RGB and everything, and it plays nicely both with Mac and Windows. So when I plug in my MacBook and stuff, I'll be able to use it without any issue for any of the Mac macros and stuff like that, like the volume up and whatever's. But as far as my gaming PC, I would love to try to pick up a Taiwanese-made Ducky 1 version 3 keyboard, mostly because those tend to be sort of the cream of the crop for just well-built PC gaming keyboards, because they use Cherry MX switches in them, and you can get them with pretty much whatever switch you prefer. So if you like extremely clicky, then you can get these keyboards with Cherry MX greens in them, which are even more clickier than the Cherry MX blues. Or if you want something that's sort of a mid-range, then you can get it equipped with Cherry MX browns. And then if you just kind of want smooth, quick, linear motions, then you can get them equipped with Cherry MX reds and everything. So would love to get one of the Ducky ones. I think they're priced at about $150. And
Your Keychron Q6 is about 200.
oh yes.
Okay.
It's definitely a nice the Keychron Q6 is a nice sort of professional style keyboard. So I mean, it's a little bit pricey for sort of kind of professional use, but the Q6 also has like a little knob that you can use stuff like QMK or VIA to customize what the knob does. So if you're doing a lot of audio work, then you can set a macro for the little knob that's on the keyboard to do something like scroll through the entire audio of a clip that you're working on. Or if you're working in Photoshop, you can turn it into a zoom button and just make it so when you spin it one way it zooms in, and then spin it another way it zooms out. So super cool keyboard, but yeah, that would definitely be more for working purposes.
Okay. All right. If you have a question for Zero and I, you can do one of two things. You can email us at zerowizcast@gmail.com, or if you're watching this on YouTube, you can comment on the bottom of on the comment section and ask us a question that we may actually use in a video in the future. So, of course, if you have comments or questions, go ahead and put that on the comment section. We'd love to hear from you.